Good morning, everyone. Uh, on behalf of KLE's College of Business Administration, Belgaum, I welcome everyone to this 1 hour seminar on artificial intelligence in modern age business. Uh, Today, we have with us our esteemed speaker, Sri Shaila. It's an honor actually to introduce you, sir. I just hope I'm audible. If you are able to hear
Yes,
me, and if you are able to see me, you can, participants, please let us know in the chat window. Uh, I before I hand over the session to our esteemed speaker today, let me just have a very quick uh, introduction to our speaker. Sir has a master's in biotechnology from Bangalore University with 15 years of industry experience. He is the vice president at Navitas Data Sciences, heading the Statistical Programming Department India, working as a CDISE volunteer and PHUSE India membership officer. He has authored an international book, FDA Clinical Outcome Assessments and CDISE QRS supplements under Clinical Disciples category with Lambert Academic Publishing Group. Needless to say, Sir is a passionate speaker and active in most of the conferences across the industry, and an avid reader, loves to play table tennis. He is an expert in analytical tools such as SAS, Python, R, CDMS, CDMS tools such as Inform, Medidata, Rave, and Oracle Clinical LSH. We feel very grateful for you, sir. Thank you so very much for taking the time today and addressing this webinar. Without any further ado, I hand over the session to you. Please take it forward. Glad to have you today.
thank you. Thank you so much. So first of all, good morning, everyone. And thank you to see the energy to log into this call and warm welcome to this webinar. And trust each one of you and your loved ones are safe. I know we're all going through a stressful moment because of COVID crisis. And I'd like to thank KLE management for this great opportunity, and also Navitas Data Sciences and Navitas Life Sciences for providing me this and appreciating me to proceed with this session. Personally, as you just heard, I'm very passionate to share knowledge, and now that we are connecting with most of the students, and if I look at the crowd today, more than 75% are students. I'm sure I really enjoy this, and I can add certain value. Definitely, there will be some takeaways from this session. And I agree with Kaylee's motto as well. They mentioned that knowledge sharing must continue. I just want to add a couple of lines before we get started there. So, scientific innovation is challenged more than ever before due to ongoing COVID-19 crisis. We are all in this together. We're all adopting ourselves in this new world. It's virtual, it's digital. So, let us begin with a positive hope that humanity will win and science will win. Right? So with this, I think let me get started with my session and start sharing screen. Kindly let me know when you can see my screen. Hope you all can see my screen. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so this topic is again very vast. As you have seen, artificial intelligence has been talked about from many years. You take Hollywood or you take any of the, even in Indian history, there are instances where artificial intelligence have been used. And if you go and Google it, and you'll find beautiful history how, if you look at this century, starting with, the computer defeating one of the best chess champions, and computer doing a lot of things over a period of time. So we have seen that power of supercomputing, whether it is in space, spacecraft industry or any other industry. So I think this topic is very vast. And looking at the crowd today, I know we have a good mix of people from students and also from industry. So I have set my agenda into 4 different sections. So there will be some basic aspects, and I'm sure I just want to make a disclaimer that some of the points are probably for students difficult to visualize because they would have not seen the corporate. And when I talk about organization changes, probably they will not be able to visualize. But again, this gives a overall sense of direction for you guys, and then you can just at least get the direction in which you should think about and how the world is operating. So if you look at my agenda, so first section, I would like to cover the basics of artificial intelligence and machine learning at a very high level and as much as possible in my layman language, right? And in the next section, we will go into how AI is impacting the revenue and cost in the business, how it is enabling the business, what organizations can do. Will AI lead to job cuts? That's a very interesting point that we all have to understand. What is the need of workforce retraining, upskilling, and how the startups are booming in the last few years. And not only this, so we have, once we see the positive side of AI, we also have to see how we are going to manage the cyber security issues. How do you manage those AI algorithms? What if machines go beyond control and then do something which humans do not want to do? You might have heard from a lot of people, right, about it. So, and also how AI behaves. Is it biased? Are there ethical issues? Are there legal issues? And then how organizations can, when they adopt AI in their business functions, how they can mitigate them, and how to achieve trustworthy AI where people can feel confident to share their data, or when their data has been used, it is not used against them. And but last but not the least, we cannot forget COVID, and I'm sure you all agree that COVID has become integral part of our life, and so it is very important. So we can't discuss without COVID how AI can impact business because next few years we're all going to fight with COVID, and how AI can help us to build more resilient economies. What I'm going to talk about COVID, how COVID is shifting the profit pools, estimated time to recover for the industries to come back to the GDP that we had in 2019, and how artificial intelligence has like the things like social distancing have changed the paradigm, just like the online learning that we are doing and many other things, and how the organizations can get back to that speed. And the whole new culture is required, the whole new leadership thoughts are required. The traditional methodologies may not work, like for example working from home and remote working model and all that. So we will also look at how organizations can reinvent themselves to speed up in the post-COVID era. And then obviously I'll definitely love to spend some time especially listening to you, because the first 45 minutes and so maybe I will be speaking, and I would love to definitely interact and ask, answer as many as questions as possible. And if I don't know something, definitely I will take it offline. We can always discuss. So first, just like an icebreaker, before we start about technology and talking about all that machine learning attributes, I want to just make the things easy. Let's start with the baseline that AI is already integral part of our life, and this is something that you already know. This is not something that I'm telling you newly. You know that we already have Google, digital virtual assistants like Google Assistant or Apple Siri, Alexa. And this is most important, how the online stores are learning about your purchasing behaviors. Like for example, Amazon and other online retailers, they're using the AI to gather information about your preferences, buying habits, and then they personalize your shopping experience by popping up those the ones that they think that you may be more interested in. Of course, music recommendations, similarly, how they understand the listening habits of the customers. And mobile banking, so all your reminders of payments, monthly reminders and all that, that you all get it through automated, it's all programmed. And fraud prevention, so I'm sure some of you already know that when you swipe a credit card, more than 10 algorithms are running at the back end. So they're programmed in such a way that, okay, to figure out if there is any fraud that's happening or any unexpected data points that are coming up. And looking at the social media, you all know LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is using it to help match candidates to the jobs, because millions of candidates, millions of jobs. How do you really get match them? How do you really make sure the relevant jobs candidates get the relevant job opportunities? And Pinterest. So Pinterest is very interesting. Let's say you take any photograph when you visit your friend's place, you take a photograph of any table or something, or a beautiful picture. The lens tool, which uses AI within Pinterest, it will read that image, and it will also go and get you the similar images which you might be interested in. And it may also even suggest the way where you can shop, and what are the good things that you can buy. And then chatbots are widely used. You go to any website, the robot will start chatbot will start talking to you. Hi, can I help you? It tried to mimic as much as a human being. I know it lacks emotions. If you are if you lost your card, or if there is a fraud happened to you, and if chatbot is talking to you very comfortably, you will not be in a mood to talk to it in a very slow manner. You just want your credit account to be blocked or saved. You will be in a different emotions. Probably the machine may not understand that emotion, but chatbots are still useful because 90% of the time, when it mimics the human behavior. It tries to understand what you're trying to say, and tries to give you the answer. And Facebook proactive detection, I really like this. The Facebook has invested on this algorithm. What it does is, based on the user, if there are suicidal intuitions that are noticed based on the way they are behaving on Facebook, the way they are uploading the messages. So it happened. There is a real case where this algorithm popped up their friends, and then their friends were able to save one of the lady who was about to commit suicide. And we all know mental health is so important in the current generation, and for our younger generation to come. So this AI is again for a good cause, and Twitter is using it, Instagram, almost all the social media are using AI for one or the other reason. In fact, they are the frontliners. Email communications, yes. So when you get emails, you get spams, you get primary emails, you get some of the other emails. So your Google and all those, those are all. There are AI filters to it, which will filter it, give you the right emails. They write some of the algorithms to find out what are the fraud emails, or what are the unaccepted emails, things like that. uh, Smart replies, when you start typing, replying to your friends, it starts writing something again itself, and you can choose that. Nudging reminders about the meetings and all that. I heard that Zoom, so when Zoom started way back 3 months back, Zoom started picking up because everywhere the online learning started, there were security concerns. There was a issue that some pictures are cropping up during the call. So now Zoom has integrated AI algorithm, which is running as a safety net, and it makes sure that none of those things come across, and the call doesn't get disturbed. And web searches, yeah, you already know Google predictive searches. The one you once you start searching, so it predicts what you're trying to search next. Google's algorithm, I think most of you know the PageRank algorithm. When you type something in Google, it hits in order, right? And the first one is the most trusted one. How that most trusted one is, how the Google comes to a decision that it is the most trusted website, so that the user get the best experience, best validated information. That's because it has a software called PageRank. uh, it was of course written by Larry Page, who was Google's original founder. So it checks the the content validity of the website, and the number of references, and then based on those, it will return the best possible website. And IBM Deep Blue, we have seen playing games, chess, and all that. Travel experiences, yes. Maps and directions, yeah. Originally, GPS was found was used by U.S. military way back, and then it was extended to the entire world because of its capacity. Where right, you travel from point A to point B 10 times, then GPS picks it, and it suggests you the best possible route. Ride sharing apps like Uber uses it a lot to charge customers, to find the cabs which are nearest to the customers, and all those things. AI has been used. So of course there are certain concerns as well. You can see last week there were in UK, all the Uber drivers have gone into court to see how the algorithm behaves. They're not sure why a particular driver gets that assignment, why the so that's the other side of it. And autonomous flying, and some of you may already know that, like flights like Boeing, they told only 7 minutes of their average journey is manual. everything is autonomous. So, and drones nowadays, you can see drones are used for a variety of reasons, starting from military, starting from even some of the other, for the deliveries and all that in some countries. So, a drone uses AI. And then healthcare. Let's not forget this. This is so important. Now, epidemic outbreak predictions. Just imagine, let's say there will be SARS outbreak again after 2 weeks. Can we find out now? If we can do preventive, precautionary and then proactive identification, we can be prepared. The government staff, hospitals, administrations can be better prepared. So Google does something like that. Let's say across the world, when people type something in the Google, if somebody is typing for like, okay, what are the symptoms of SARS, or what is the medicine for fever, or so Google picks from those trends across the geography. It creates heat maps to figure out, okay, what are the symptoms across geography and what are the possible diseases and outbreaks. So Google has developed that for flu and robot assisted surgery, what I've heard. And mostly in healthcare, I have seen a lot of this software is being used because US Food and Drug Administration has approved almost more than 30 AI algorithms. We will look at one of those case study in the later slides. So if you look at all those 30 algorithms, most of them is to detect cancer, diagnose you with something. And you have seen, right? Google had, lens which you wear it, and based on your retinal image, it used to come to a conclusion whether you have a heart risk or not, like cardiac risk or not. So those are the some of the uses, and virtual nursing assistants, robotic assessments, automated image diagnosis, wearables. We know Apple conducted a study on atrial fibrosis, which is the heart-related study. So it conducted on 4 lakh people who were wearing watch. It collected the data 24 hours through the wearables, and it was able to understand the patterns and then came up with the data for that. Rare diseases detection. I know we'll all focus on now COVID and some of the top diseases, but there are 7,000 plus rare diseases in the world, which only very minority of people gets in the world. So that is, I mean, AI can be used to find out more about them. And real world analysis has become the most important one to date as I'm working in this industry, because when we want to design a new protocol, let's say we want to design a new drug to COVID, so can I learn from the past data? There are thousands of trials already done. If you see now, more than 1,000 trials, 2,000 trials are going on COVID. So can we learn from the past experience, put that all the data together, structure it, put it together, analyze, and see what not to do again, or what mistakes we don't have to do again, and develop a better experiment. So that's how it helps in AI. We spent a good amount of time. I think this slide was only to set up a larger context for you to link really practically from theoretical AI to practical. So from now onwards, let's move on with the basics of AI. So I know there are some people from the IT background in the call. So as you see, artificial intelligence as a overarching, machine learning and deep learning are the subsets of it. You can see that AI is it's just like any machine that is programmed to behave like a human. And GPS is one example that we just talked about. And machine learning is again the field of AI that uses the statistical techniques. So that's where, I mean, students who are aspiring to become data scientists who are on the call. So if you want to become a data scientist, you need to have some basic knowledge of stats. So you can do some online course on stats, the basic concepts to understand those jargons and the terminologies, to give computer systems the ability to learn from data and then without being explicitly programmed. We just spoke about Google search engine and Facebook also. How in Facebook, it recognizes your friends' photos. That is also through AI and machine learning. And deep learning is further complex, where it's a subset of ML, and it's like a multi-layered neural networks to learn. So it has been inspired by human brain, and how it has been. That's why it's called neural networks to learn, categorize and adapt based on massive volumes of data. Example, self-driving cars. I know Tesla, Waymo, there are many cars, many companies working on this. But the main principle they have is they have a camera on the top of the car, which takes 360-degree images of anything surrounding, and it records. And all the, let's say, if you talk about Tesla, all the cars and all the algorithm memory is interconnected. If there are 10 cars driving, self cars driving for the training the model, all the data is getting accumulated, and that huge knowledge is there in the 200%. Right. So these are just basic concepts. Let's move forward with some more detailed ML components. So one thing that is funny for me is, of course, AI is already, artificial intelligence is also exaggerated at times. And now just because if you go to LinkedIn or any website, you find 100 ads about AI training, data science training. You may be wondering, should I really do those trainings or not? Or if I don't do, will I lag behind than others or something like that? But what I would say is, not everything is a AI problem. There are some problems we can solve in Excel sheet. There are some problems that we can solve in other tools as well. So need not be. You don't have to pick up the AI tool for every small problem. So first thing is you have to figure out the problem. That's where your domain knowledge comes in. Whether you are from a business background, healthcare background, commerce background. So your domain knowledge is very important to understand, first of all, what is the problem that you're trying to solve. Then if that problem is worth to attempt through AI, it's a AI problem, then generate the hypothesis. What are you trying to do? Like gather the data. And you know that when you gather data, data comes from multiple sources, different formats, different conventions. It is difficult to put together, standardize, and that's where the data scientists will need to understand the data, process the data, and feature engineering, which is basically extracting the meaning from the raw data appropriately, and then training the model. So you train the model to think in a certain behavior. For example, let's say we teach machine how the flower looks like. Let's say we show 2, 3 types of flowers, flower A, flower B, flower C. The machine learns. And then when you show the fourth flower to machine, it will try to compare between to these three and then give the result. If it matches to any of this, it will throw that result. If it is not matching to any of that, then it will say unknown. So that's how the machine learning works. I mean, we will talk about it in the next slide, which is called supervised machine learning algorithm. And evaluating the model. So once you develop your model, you need to see whether it is working correctly or not. What is the precision level that you have? Whether your algorithm is behaving correctly? Are you getting the necessary result? Is it a significant result? Can we use it for certain use? Those are the things. And finally, testing the model, whether it is simple or complex. You need to keep testing to fine tune it and see if there are any issues and to improve the performance. So that's why I always say data scientists are called storytellers. So although these all things have to be done by humans and a lot of things are taken care by high-tech technologies, but finally humans who behave as data scientists, so they need to dig into data. They should apply the domain knowledge. They should clean the data. They should transform it in a required format. They should identify the proper statistical model to build and validate them, understand the pattern of the data, generate the insights. So when you take consumer data, so if you don't understand the pattern, how do how do you go back to customers? So that's how it is. And most importantly, communicating the results is so important. I think if I look at the industry, I mean, everybody is experimenting and everybody is trying to refining. You will see that there are various tools for various reasons. And next, this is one of the critical slide. I mean, if you really want to understand machine learning, so I have tried to give examples from the business side because most of you are studying the business administration or those subjects. So, so machine learning, we all learned that it's the ability to learn from data without being programmed. And when we talk about supervised, we just learned about the flower example. That's a supervised learning because we are telling exactly machine which is which flower, things like that. And within supervised learning, there are two types of problem based on the input data and then all that. For example, when you have the categorical, like for example, predicting labels which are categorical in nature, like for example, like fraud detection, this is a classification problem. Diagnostic, image classification, email spam detection, and customer retention. These are all the classification. So when we talk about regression, so so the predicting labels which are continuous in nature, like sales volume you want to predict, stock price prediction, market forecasting, and advertising popularity prediction, weather forecasting. Again, these are widely used models. When we talk about unsupervised learning, that means, see, when we have a training on the flowers, we know that we have 3 flowers and we want to train this machine learning algorithm. Let's say this word has 2 lakhs flowers. Let's train machine with all the 2 lakhs flowers. It will find it out. If there is a new flower coming in, we can keep on adding to that database and keep updating the model. But we, in terms of, in case of unsupervised learning, we don't know what we want to do. Sometimes researchers are asking the algorithm questions that they don't know the answer. Huge data, like right nowadays, the amount of data that gets generated is in petabytes and beyond that. So how do you pick things from there? So in supervised in unsupervised learning, a deep learning model is handed a data set without explicit instruction. There are no instructions to the machine on what to do it. The neural network then attempts to automatically find structure in the data. It will try to predict some data, structure pattern by extracting useful features and analyzing its structure. So when we look at within unsupervised learning, we have clustering and dimensional reduction. Let's look at some more practical examples. Like when we talk about clustering, it is basically grouping the related items. Like in the case of business, like it is market segmentation, customer segmentation, targeted marketing, and recommender systems. And dimensionality reduction, projecting higher dimensional data onto lower dimensions. For example, image recognition, face recognition, text mining, which is so important when you go and search a lot of scientific articles. You need to do the text mining to pick up the right things. Big data visualizations, like huge data sets. Can you visualize in a graphical format and identify outliers, trends? And so, in addition to the supervised and unsupervised learning, we also have something called reinforcement learning, where there is a continuous learning from the environment. The algorithms will keep learning from the environment. This is basically a real-time decisions, like a robot navigation. Manufacturing will use this, and gaming AIs use this. So with this technology, yeah, let's get on to some of the other things. You have seen that data science, huge number of tools, right? Compared to 10 years before, when I started my career, first 6 months to 1 year, I worked on Excel. Then we started using SQL, then Oracle, SAS, what and whatnot. So now, if you see in last few years, there are so many tools. There's a tool for everything. But still, if you ask any data scientist, they say I don't have sufficient tools. That's what they say. So that's why they're saying I have enough tools, but say no data scientist. So for all of you as students, it's so important to understand that technology space is continuing to expand. It is paramount that we stay ahead in terms of learning curve in order to take advantage of the cutting edge solutions that are required for data science problem solutions. Maybe if you're not aspiring to be a data scientist in top software companies like Facebook or Amazon or those companies, Microsoft and things like that. But still, if you want to use your domain knowledge and apply AI, just a basic data science knowledge will definitely help you to really understand what's happening, to understand the company process and things like that. See, in last few years, I have listed out few tools that have come up. For example, SAS, which is my forte, SAS, R, and Python. This is where I excel. It's been widely used for analytics globally. I would say at least in our industry, SAS is used 90%. R is used for statistical analysis, and Python is seems like a winner. It's very widely used in recent times. And then big data, we have Hadoop, Hive, MongoDB, Cassandra. We have support and data analytics tools like Scala, Spark, SQL, data transformations like Informatica, Ab Initio, ETL, extraction, transformation, and loading, and visualization tool like graphical visualization of data, Tableau, TIBCO, Spotfire, Power BI, Matplotlib, Gigi. You have seen those when you are watching IPL, right? All these graphs with cricketers, statistics, and all. So I think these are the softwares which will help in coming up with that, and even these COVID-19 related, graphs. An integrated development environment. So these are the areas that you can use your tools like PyCharm to for the Python, Jupyter Notebook. You can use both R and Python there, and RStudio for R and IntelliJ for R. Web scraping tool like Beautiful Soup and Scrapy. And we can't forget the cloud platform computing platforms, right? Amazon Web Services or Microsoft, even Alibaba. Everybody is there in that business. It's a huge business, cloud computing. So I would say let's acknowledge and protect time to learn and play with the new programming language. That's the key for all of you guys, right? So a lot of technology. This is the last slide on technology, and then we'll go on business. So I also want to bring up to you that which are the most popular language frameworks, so that you can focus on those. So TensorFlow, Scikit-learn, and Keras, PyTorch, SAS are these are the widely used ones. Okay, so most of them are, of course, SAS is not open source, but Python is open source, R is free. Most of them are open source, either machine learning algorithm frameworks or deep learning algorithm. Right? And most common form of ML being used is supervised learning, because there we will have a control. We teach machine what it is, and we expect a consistent result. And this came out from a survey, global survey, O'Reilly survey of more than 1,300 people. It's a most recent survey, and you can actually believe this data, and then you can focus on any of those frameworks when you start learning and working on the projects. Yeah, in your training. With this, I just wanted to close this first section with the power of big data, right? The consumer data will be the biggest differentiator in the next 2 to 3 years. Whoever unlocks the reams of data and uses it strategically will win. This is a message from Angela, a senior vice president of retail at Apple. And this is the power of big data. So if we understand, see, now businesses are making data-driven decisions, and data matters a lot. Data is the currency, and data is the oil of 21st century. With this, let's move to the second section of how AI is being used across the business. And if you see this slide, so AI is adopted across industries and various dimensions. For example, whether it is, when I say high tech industry, it is the people like Facebook, people like those are Microsoft, and these are the front runners who use AI a lot. Excuse me. So these are the front runners who use AI a lot. And when you see other industries like automotive, telecom, almost all industries, even healthcare has started AI big time in the recent times. And when you look at these dimensions, so if you understand this, so this is again a global survey from McKinsey of more than 2,000 people who are working on at least one AI-based project in their company. So the dimensions are like robotic process automation. Some people are using this dimension. Computer vision, whenever the vision is required for machines. So this paradigm of AI is being used. Machine learning, natural language text processing, and virtual agents are conversational interfaces. We know the chatbots. Physical robotics, we know the nursing assistants, robots. In some places I heard that because of COVID, robots are doing the service in the hotel. So, and then natural language speech understanding. So when you speak to Alexa, it understands your language, and then it converts into a machine learning machine understandable language, and then it understands and responds back to you with the natural language. That one. Natural language generation and autonomous vehicles. We spoke about the self-driving cars. So basically, if I summarize, so AI adoption is increasing in nearly all industries, but capabilities vary. You can see some like high-tech companies are using some of the things more. For example, now autonomous vehicles is not used much in retail, right? Because retail do not need autonomous thing, whereas computer vision is used very less in retail, whereas it is highly used in automotive because this is where the self-driving car comes in. So high tech leads the show, and there is a cost benefit. So more than 41% of people felt that there is a cost benefit. Some people are yet to realize, and they have hope. Moving to the next slide. So impact of AI on revenue and cost, right? So it is very important to understand, is AI really generating cost for companies? So when they did a survey, the same survey of McKinsey, so they have divided into two things. One is the departments where the revenue increased, the departments where the cost decreased. So as you can see, the marketing and sales, the average revenue increased in a big number. That is because, like, especially in the pricing, because of pricing, prediction of likelihood to buy, and customer analytics, service analytics. Whereas the cost decrease was observed mainly in manufacturing. That significant savings came from optimizing the yield, energy, and throughput. So in summary, I would say AI is definitely making impact on the revenue and cost. Yeah, other departments are just still adapting, but it's yet to realize the benefits. And we can only positively, with COVID, we can only positively hope that AI will be generating more revenues and it can add a lot of value to our business chain. Okay, so AI is a piece of technology, and then when you want to make it the language that is used across the organization, now AI the knowledge should not reside in only one technical person or a set of technical team members. When AI has been implemented across business, your SOPs change, your process change, your entire practices change, and your organizing philosophy and then approach changes. So basically, organizations should start thinking to align their AI strategy to business goals. They should start investing in AI talent. And every time there's a new language which is coming up, You need to train your employees and make them capable to use those languages to get the benefit of those languages. Collaborating across functions, so between functions, and then applying strong data practices. We have recently seen that companies like Facebook, Google, they have been questioned by the regulators in UK and US, right, because of the privacy data concerns and all that. So having a clear data strategy, that means when we take the public data, how are we going to use it? We have GDPR issue in Google in UK as well, so we can't violate and then use the private data for some other reasons. So how do you apply the strong data practices is very important for organization to succeed in AI. And establishing standard protocols, like how frequently are you going and doing the QC audit of your AI models? That's very important. And then how to ensure AI is ethical and legal is more important. So these are the things that organizations can focus as a core practice to capture AI value at scale. So next question is again interesting one. Will AI lead to workforce reduction? Is I mean there are both sides of the answers among these people who attended this survey of 2,000 people. So most of them in general, when we see, yes, it is leading to some job cuts. And when you see past year and compared to the next 3 years, you can see that there are increased job cuts in automotive and telecom industry, and you can see some other industries are not that high. So you can keep a watch on this. So when you as students, when you get into jobs, just understand where is technology cutting jobs. Of course, technology will also create jobs. Mm, but it's always very important for you to understand where more autonomous things are happening at a bigger picture, and then which are the areas where of course, any fine day, AIs cannot replace humans 100%. It can only fasten the process. They say that anything that we can do in 2 seconds or less than 2 seconds can be automated by robots. So there are various tasks which requires human emotion, which requires human intelligence. So 80 to 90% of what is automation is feasible in many of the aspects. Leave about the self-driving cars and all that, but in our day-to-day business and other regular things, I think human intervention is always required. So that way we don't have to fear much. But there is a trend. There is a trend to job cuts in certain segments like automotive and telecom. And yeah, we spoke about workforce retraining. Here also, the high performers, like the front runners of AI implementers, they are doing good. If you see, in the past year versus the next 3 years, what we can expect. Of course, in next 3 years, people have to train. The companies have to train their employees on AI. The more and more training, and you can see the AI performers are leading the show compared to all other companies. 83% of respondents expect at least some of their workforce to be retrained in the next 3 years because of AI adoption, right? So the greater emphasis is on workforce retraining now. With this, let's get on to understand this startups. So when I see that this year's list AI 100, which is the CB Insights annual ranking, so they rank on various parameters based on the amount of investment and all that, and the potential. So the 2020 AI startups have raised over $7.4 billion in funding across 300 plus deals from 600 plus unique investors. And you can see it has been spread across 15 core industries, whether it is healthcare, finance, transportation, construction, manufacturing, retail. And we have already seen that Google is investing huge amount for the digital India dream of India, right? And many other, like Facebook is investing, Geo is investing. I think there are a lot of things which are happening. You can only see many more startups coming in, and all these big giants are doing the mergers and acquisitions as well based on their potential of the startups. This eventually means for you people, it's a job opportunity. For the people who are looking for job, it's a great job opportunity, because when more new AI companies are coming in, obviously they need data scientists, they need people to work on the data, clean the data, transform the data, and then do modeling, analysis, and all that. And because I'm from healthcare background, I wanted to add this slide. So again, one of the industries that stand to be significantly impacted by AI is healthcare. And you can see more and more AI startups are coming, whether it is imaging and diagnostics or drug discovery. That means even before the medicine is tested on humans, when we are doing all this computational, in vitro studies, and when the molecule is at computer simulations are done at the first stage to understand whether the drug molecule works or not. At that stage itself, and looking at the historical data, historical scientific literature, learning from them, looking at all past clinical trials, past healthcare data, identifying the trends. And virtual assistant is being used a lot. And nowadays, because of the COVID, clinical trials got hugely impacted. I mean, the entire focus about the medical staff is on COVID, and many other diseases are not getting sufficient attention. So that's where I think even the healthcare industry was more of a traditional before. Now they're all becoming virtual. Instead of patients coming to hospitals, why it's the other way around, where medicines are delivered directly to patients. All the data is collected directly from their tab or wearables, many other remote data capturing processes, virtual trials, hybrid trials. That means if patient have to come 10 times to hospital, it can be reduced to 2 or 3 times based on the actual need. Otherwise, 7 times they can stay at home, or a nurse is visiting their house. So that's how they're using it in healthcare and hospital decision support, predictive analytics. So when I talk about prediction, see, we all started with diagnosis right long back. When you diagnose for a disease, yes, then you know you have a disease. Now it's the generation where it's not only diagnosis. We need to predict before. More than prediction, we need to prescribe. Okay, instead of predicting that it will happen, can we prescribe? How can we avoid that to happen? Let's say, are you prone to cancer? Can we predict that? Let's say you're carrying your genome in a pen drive, and by just looking at your genome, can we customize the medicine, like personalized medicine, so that it really works for you? You need to understand it identifies all the genetic risks that you carry. So that is where this healthcare AI is heading towards, and working on various aspects of healthcare. And so I want to quote one real-time study as well, because I spoke about a lot of examples, but I want to speak dedicatedly on one example in healthcare. As you can see, IDXDR is the first FDA, so US Food and Drug Administration, they authorized this medical device, and this device is using artificial intelligence to detect diabetic retinopathy in adults with diabetes. So there is some data. So globally, people who are diabetic after 15 years, once they are diabetic, 2% of the people will go blind, and more than 10% of people will develop severe visual impairments. So identifying the diabetic retinopathy much early is very important to avoid all these challenges, health challenges. So this was developed, in last few years, and as you can see, IDXDR is the first medical device authorized for marketing, announced on 11th April 2018, that provides screening decision without the need for clinician as well. So let's understand what is the process forward. So images of eye are taken on a retinal camera called Topcon NW400, and once the images are taken, it is then uploaded to the cloud server where the IDXDR software is installed. Once your images are uploaded there, retinal images, the software gives you results in less than 2 minutes, and it will produce a report whether you are prone to diabetic, or you're negative, or you are prone to diabetic. So this is one of the great invention, and just I wanted to share that how AI is very effectively used and practically used now in the healthcare field. So we almost finished second section. Now I think it's the time to talk about the other challenges of AI, right? So we understood the basics of AI and machine learning. We also looked at the business aspects. Now let's understand the challenges with AI and black box issue. So we call it as a black box because we don't know how the code is behaving, right? When machine learns on itself, and when there is an input, we don't know how the output is going to come. Can we understand the root cause of the negative outcome in AI solution? What if the AI starts giving wrong results? Whom do you make accountable? How do you understand which piece of your code is doing the wrong thing? So that's a challenge. Can users identify? So let's say the machine has been taught using certain training data, right? The machine's thinking ability is as good as the training data. So can users identify the training data or the machine learning paradigm that led to AI's application specific action? Can we identify that is the question. Yes, there are efforts like we need to build explainable systems whose actions can be easily understood by humans, right? So that is the need of the hour. And there are already initiatives in place where open neural network exchange format may help. This is a new open ecosystem for interchangeable AI models between systems. So keep a watch on this when you're working on AI. To continue with the challenges, there are other issues as well. The first one is bias. I just mentioned, right? AI systems are trained on specific sets of data, and any biases or things unique to those data sets will influence the way machines run. So there's a funny example that I would like to quote. I think Twitter tried something. They wanted to try a bot which can automatically respond. So the bot learned from all the existing Twitter tweets, and you know how mischievous these tweets are at times. So bot started giving a lot of those kind of comments which are not acceptable because the language that is used in Twitter. So immediately it was stopped in few hours, and that's where I mean we need to have control. The system gets biased. It will learn what we teach. Machine will learn ultimately what we teach. So we need to be careful. If we are teaching some biased data, obviously it will do bias. So for example, machines may be fooled to see images that don't really exist in a set of random dot visuals. It may imagine itself. Facial recognition software trained using more white faces do more poorly at recognizing non-white faces. I mean, it can be anything. So when you have a different races, obviously you're training the machine with one and you're trying to adapt another one, it may not work. The other thing is decision by autonomous vehicles. So this is a funny example again. So let's say a self-driving car is going on the road. For some reason there is a system failure and it comes across cats and dogs. So the question is, will it save cat or dog is a question. See, when we are driving we will take some call based on that moment, but how does the machines decide, and how do you legally explain that? How ethical is that decision to save cat or to save dog, right? So this is one thing that to understand about the ethical and legal issues. And the reproducibility crisis is another thing. Like lots of AI models in use can't actually be recreated as the source training data continuously gets updated, parameters get updated. Can AI give consistent result, the same, similar results? No, again and again, may not be. That is a challenge. So that's why they say machine learning is only as good as our training database. If we feed in with poor training data, then machine will learn poorly, especially in terms of supervised learning. So what organizations are doing now? There are so many risks, right, with AI. Of course, today also I heard the news about cybersecurity issues going on in the world, right? So organizations have to take care, and here also the front runners, the AI high performers are more likely that they're preparing whether to avoid the cyber security measures, and they're trying to they identified these risks and they're trying to mitigate whether like regulatory compliance, achieving regulatory compliance to the respective laws. For example, UK has a GDPR policy that anything you do with the data in UK with the citizens' data, it has to be following the GDPR. And personal privacy, so you can't use anybody's data against them, right? Any person's data you can't. Explainability, can you explain your model well in a humanly explainable manner? And various other things like equity and fairness and all that. So this is again, this is how organizations are again, relooking at their model regularly, looking for cyber security issues and ensuring that their AI systems are say, not at risks. And recently I've seen that attack on the Twitter account also, right? From the famous personalities, there was a tweet on some of the Bitcoins and all that. So that's a risk that Twitter had from the hackers. So these are the things that when organization implement AI, they have to mitigate. So that means we all, I mean, you are the younger generation, when you start becoming a data scientist and start becoming a domain experts, think of these things. How lawful can our AI tool be? How ethical can it be? How robust? So that's the combination called trustworthy AI. So the first thing is AI system should enable equitable societies by supporting fundamental rights and not decrease or limit or misguide the autonomy. AI should be secure, reliable, and robust enough to deal with errors or inconsistencies during all life cycle phases of AI systems. Citizens should have full control of their data. Data should not be used to harm or discriminate against them. Transparency should be maintained. I gave an example of Uber earlier in this session. Diversity, non-discrimination, and fairness, and societal and environmental well-being. So AI system should be used to enhance positive social change. I know some of the people, compassionate people, think AI is used positively, but it can be used negatively as well, right? So enhance sustainability and ecological responsibility and accountability for AI systems. So somebody should take that responsibility. How do you put a mechanism in place to ensure responsibility of whatever AI system does and its outcomes? So these are vital. I picked it from the European Union guidelines for AI. So pretty much this is applicable globally as well. So with this, we will enter the last section. I think I hope I'm doing good on the time here. So can artificial intelligence help us to build a more resilient economy in the face of COVID? This is again a very interesting discussion. So first, let's look at how COVID-19 crisis is shifting profit pools. They say that the best industries are getting better, the worst are getting worse. As you can see, the industries like semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, personal product software, their numbers are really good. They are doing beyond good. Whereas the other industries are really struggling. So in fact, the six most profitable industries have added up to $275 billion a year to their expected economic profit pool, while the bottom six have lost 375 billion. So this is a very scary data, but we need to understand how because of the lockdowns and all that, I hope the economy comes back on track. But I know we all know that it's a struggle and it's a continuous fight because of multiple lockdowns time to time. Then looking at the estimated time to recover to pre-COVID. So by when can we recover back to the same GDP that we had in 2019? I know there are a lot of stimulus packages given across the world by governments, but if you look at, so there are two scenarios. One is, let's say we get a medicine very soon, we contain the virus. In that case, I think the recovery is very faster for various industries. Of course, we know that the hospitality industry, airline, and all, they got severely impacted. It will take some time for them to even education, so it will take some time for them to come back to the normal. But in a muted recovery, let's say, it will take much more time, and that's how it looks for all the other industries. So I mean, it is a very challenging task, and I mean, this is one time data. Things can change based on if we get medicine or a vaccine, and if it is available for everyone. So talking about again cost, how artificial intelligence has shifted the goalposts. They predict that potential contribution to global economy by 2030 because of AI is like $15 trillion. And for India GDP by 2035 it is around US dollar 957 billion. And we already have 72,000 people working in AI in 2019 and expecting a growth of 80% year on year. And the key drivers that they identify in COVID era is social distancing, data-driven understanding of market trends, controlling the spread of pandemic, providing customized solutions, cost optimization, and service. And the five major things which are which industry can use is robots for automating the manufacturing process, chatbots to maintain stakeholder communication, cognitive understanding of customer mind, and predicting the COVID-19 hotspots and drug development. And of course, a lot of online schools are there now. So personalized online training is going to be. These are the areas where AI is happening. Okay, with all this, I mean, this is a high level data for organizations. So as students, you can understand that organizations also will go through these changes in the post-COVID era to adapt themselves to survive and to grow. So they should start rethinking the ways of working. They need to speed up, delegate decision making, limit the multiple approval levels, make it fast, empower your teams, set up a focused executive excellence, cultivate partnerships across vendors, trusted partnerships. And they say that pandemic has really shown that it is possible to make decisions faster without breaking the business. Flatten the structure, avoid multiple levels, empower teams, make hybrid work. Yes, so I agree, 100% remote for all industries is not possible. But we need to somewhere come in the middle where we need to have all critical roles which needs to come into office, they have to come on site, and the remaining people can continue to work from home. That's how hybrid model can be embraced and then utilized. So we need to empower and fast and agile teams are created. and field tomorrow's leader today. So we need young talent, people who can understand the dynamics and really come up with ideas, innovation. So innovation, forward-thinking ideas is the need of the hour. And of course, there is a problem. So, but we have to think beyond that. So there are solutions. So it may take some time, but yes, definitely there are solutions. And learn how to learn. So this is a new concept. We need to learn from the ongoing changes and also adapt ourselves and tweak the standard processes. Continue to refine. This is a new thing, and definitely this is a new role. Rethink the role of CEOs leaders. What is the role in this new world is what important. And you can see coronavirus pandemic is a challenge of our times. The time for organizations to build for speed is now. They have to just build up now. So with this, I think we're almost there on time. So some of the key takeaways that I wanted to bring out for all of us is yes, AI adoption is increasing in all industries, but the capabilities vary based on the type of company. Aligning AI strategy to business goals, investing in training, applying strong data practices are very much required to have a sustainable AI in the business. Mechanism should be put in place to ensure responsibility and accountability for AI system. So somebody should take responsibility on how your AI tools behave so that the customers get that confidence in your AI tool. And then consumer data will be the biggest differentiator in next 2 3 years. Whoever unlocks the reams of data and uses it strategically will win. And most companies report measurable benefits from AI. However, much work remains to scale impact. It's a work in progress, I would say. We need to manage the risks. We need to retrain the workforce. We need to go forward. Continuing on the takeaways, the usage of AI is expected to accelerate amidst the COVID-19. So COVID-19 has, in some way, has become a catalyst to a lot of changes. And then we need to reinvent the organization for speed, as we just discussed in the last slide. We need to rethink the ways of working, reimagining the structure, uh, create nimble and empower teams, reshape the talent. And as a closing note, so not to scare you, I would say robots are not going to replace humans. They are going to make their jobs much more human, difficult, demeaning, demanding, dangerous, dull. These are the jobs that robots will be taking from. This is from Sabine Hart, co-founder of RoboHub. I think, yeah. So predicting the future isn't magic. It's artificial intelligence. I really like this quote. So we need to use it for the positive cause, and I'm sure you would have taken a lot of message from this session uh, to build ethical and legal AI. Thank you everyone for your attention. For any questions, please contact me at this email ID or through LinkedIn. I'm always available. And so thank you. So I would love to take questions if there are any.
Hello, sir. I think we have a question from the audience. Can AI also work on data security, especially in the field of digital payments? That's the question from the chat.
Exactly. So if any digital payment has to happen, there are certain steps like authentication, OTP generation, and all that. So once the bank or the bankers understand the customer behavior pattern, right? So it is easy for us to identify what to expect and what not to expect the data, and any outliers in the data can be made as a point where the flag can be raised when there is a transaction which is not uh, planned. For example, uh, I swiped my card in Philadelphia last year. Suddenly, I got a call from the banker saying that did you do this transaction? So I think they were just scanning because last 1 year I didn't visit you, so I was doing all India level transactions. So when I went to US, probably there is an algorithm which is running and figured it out. Are there any other questions?
Yes, sir. I think there's one more in the chat. Will AI play a major role in future warfares?
Yeah, I mean, if we talk, I mean, there
We
are
will have to
people
answer
who,
this one very strategically.
yeah, there are people who say that uh, if we allow machines. their intelligence may go beyond us by 2045, and they may reach a stage where they won't anymore listen to humans and all that. But again, I can't comment on that. But of course, any technology can be used for good things or the negative things. Yes.
Now, sir, on behalf, I think there are other people here. We have some bit of questions from the panelists. Um, if we have to look at AI as a starting point for career, what do you think should be the prerequisites for somebody who wants to pursue a career in this domain? So, what sort of prerequisites, either that can be from educational qualifications perspective, or say the kind of skills required to succeed in this particular domain? If you could just throw uh, light on
So
that.
what I've seen is people from statistical background who would have done masters in stats or BSc stats, or people who did mathematics. For them, they were mostly. I've seen them becoming data scientists more. But now, because it has become a the most widely available job opportunity, even people from other background, whether it is science, like I myself, I studied biotechnology. I did all the genetic engineering, molecular biology in my college, but I learned all the languages, whether it is SQL, Python, or SAS, just to prepare myself for the industry. And it was not tough. So what your students have to understand is, yes, there is a data and there is a tool, and the tool will does some analysis of the data. And if you are from the business background, then your domain knowledge is very important. So you can still study business, but you can do a top-up course on data science just to accustom yourself to understand how these tools can be used on business data. Let's say if I am from biotechnology and pharma, I understand cancer very well. I understand biology very well. I understand proteomics very well. So when I learn a bit of technology, now I know, okay, how that can be used on the domain. So what I would say is, if you are already doing, non-statistics, or if you're not into mathematics, that's fine. So you can start with basic data science course. I'm sure a lot of free courses online. If you go to LinkedIn, you will find a link of top 10 free courses, or top 10 institutes, top 10 languages, and all that. So you can start with a basic Python course, or basic data science course. And first, so without going and paying huge fees and then putting yourself into a much bigger thing, first you can start with some free trainings and see whether it is your passion, is it your interest, can you really add value, can you really sustain them? Because I mean, we can't just pick things just because there are more jobs. So you have to figure out, everybody has to understand where they are in their career, what they want to do. And obviously, in terms of job opportunities, lot of jobs on data scientists are available. So if they do a basic course, if they're doing other studies, if they're not into technology, if they do a basic course with a minor project and understand and interpret and implement ideas, at least one or two projects will help them to understand how it is actually used. Because theory is one thing, practical things are very much important. So I would say, if somebody has to make a career, they can always make in data science. And because not everything is very tough. It's not like these tools are complex to learn. There are various trainings and models, and then training materials. There are already free projects uploaded in GitHub and all those websites. So I would strongly recommend that, for students, just start with a basic course, and from there you pick up whether you really want to pursue, or really you don't want to pursue. It's not your area.
So, test the waters before you finally go ahead and choose a career option.
Well said.
All right, sir. Uh, I think that's it. We do have some more chat questions. Um, can AI read human mind?
Yeah, they are trying, right? So Facebook is trying to read through your emotions, the way, based on your facial expression.
But
They
that, I
want
guess,
to,
is more on a prediction level, right?
yeah,
Based on the existing behaviors shown, that's more prediction.
I don't think so. There are any examples. We have this robot, right? Sophia. So
Ah,
they say
yeah.
Sophia has citizenship, Sophia has passport, but it doesn't have a heart. So working on mind and emotions, I mean, completely reflecting human emotions, it's still some more time. It takes some more time.
Okay. All right, sir. Well, thank you very much. This was definitely an insightful session. On behalf of the principal and management of Kaylee Sibalk, I thank Sri Shaila, sir, for sharing his time, valuable information, and knowledge. Vedraj Desai, I see, has raised his hand.
Yeah, sure.
Could you please comment and let us know if you have any question? Uh, okay, I'm going to unmute Vedraj. Okay. All right, I think it's just an error. All right.
Yeah.
So any follow-up questions? We do have sir's email ID mentioned on the screen. I would request the participants to go to the email ID and type out their questions, share the comments, stay in touch with sir and connect with him as well. I thank all the participants for taking up the time. I thank you, sir, for giving us your valuable information and insights. There is a feedback form. The link will be shared very soon in our chat window. That is going to be crucial for everybody else to, understand and get the certificates and everything in place. Thank you very much, sir.
I wish all the very best to all the students and then all the professionals on the call. So may the good times come and you all get a good opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, team. Bye.
Participants can stay on call. We'll just circulate the feedback form. Meanwhile, Sri Shaila, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, the management. Yeah, I'm just going out. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.